Welcome back. In this demonstration, we're going to talk about creating our monochromatic moonlight tree silhouette. Last session, we made the background for this tree composition, and today we're going to talk about making the collage. A collage is any time you cut up small pieces of paper and arrange them into a new picture to create new meaning. So here's Jazz by Henry Matisse, and you can see how he's cut up these different pieces of paper to make the figure of the person, and then to make these various stars in the background. Here's another student work, and you can see how this student took this square of yellow paper and cut it out to leave the black background, and then likewise cut out this purple magenta colored paper to create the kind of symmetrical flip side of what they cut out up here. So that's what a collage is, when you cut out small pieces of paper and arrange them into a picture to create new meaning. Now, a silhouette is whenever there's a light source behind your object and it thereby creates a black shape that has a strong outlined look. So here's kind of a typical silhouetted portrait looking picture, and then here's kind of the idea of what we're working with. Here you can kind of see this tree standing on top of the hill with the moon behind it, and the moon is projecting the light and making this just look black because the light is behind it. Okay? So as we make our picture, obviously it's going to be looking like a silhouette, like that black tree with the moon behind it. Now, organic lines and shapes. Today as we make our tree, we really want to be thinking about organic lines and organic looking shapes. So using lines and shapes that look natural is something that looks organic. Nature-made things usually have curves, and human-made things usually tend to be straight. Like a tree is a natural thing, and a building is a human-made thing. So if we look here, you know, these buildings are very straight. If they weren't, they'd probably fall down and have be really, really difficult to build. Whereas when nature's making trees kind of grow where they need to grow. They change their direction based on the sun. And you can see these tree trunks here curve, and this one in the back is curvy, and these in the back here are curvy. So as we make our trees, we want to start with some curvy, wiggly lines, and then create some lines coming off there to make interesting looking branches. If you look at these branches here in the background, you'll see that there's a lot of Y-like shapes, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Lastly, we'll talk about negative space. Negative space is the space in between objects. So if you look at this picture of a key, at first you might see a key, but then later, if you look closer, you might see some buildings inside of these key slots here. Kind of a cool way to show and use negative space. Also here in this tree, you'll see all these little pieces in between the branches. Those are the kind of negative shapes that we're looking for in this picture. Just like these shapes down here in between the negative spaces of those branches. Okay? So, in getting started, here is our picture. Okay? And you're going to start with a piece of black paper. Now this black paper we're going to draw on the back of it. It should be just a bit smaller than your original background, so I'll cut it to a 9x12 piece of black paper. Then you're going to use a white colored pencil here. And as you use this colored pencil, you're going to just draw one kind of organic looking line about, you know, I don't know, a little less than halfway up your paper. Then you're going to start by making a big organic looking Y shape. You can see how this Y looks here. Now we're going to create a staggered pattern. We're going to start by making another Y, and then off that main branch make another Y. You can see how they're not next to each other. This one's here, that one's there, and there's space in between them. So I've got 4 Y's coming off this one main branch here. And now you can see that I'm taking this one and overlapping it right here. When we overlap, that's where our negative space is going to be. So I've made 4 branches here. Now I'm going to make some branches over on this side. Okay, and make sure they go all the way out to the edge of the paper. And on each branch, you could have other branches too. It kind of depends on your space and whether or not you are able to fit them in. Okay, everyone's branches are going to look different. Once you get a variety of branches done, then you're going to do that skill we've always taught about when we make bubble letters. You're going to pretend that these branches are the insides of your letters, and it's kind of like a skeleton for your tree. And for this skeleton, you're going to draw around your branches so that the white lines on the inside are like your skeleton. Now, as you draw these branches, make sure that you make them a little pointy at the end. Usually as branches get closer to the end of their branch, I guess, they get pointier. They get thinner, they get smaller, whereas the branches, the big trunks and branches in the middle, are going to be the thickest parts of your tree. Okay, notice right here when I move my hand, you can see there's a big negative space there. Okay, and that negative space is where we want our emptiness to be. Now, as I finish the rest of this, just taking these spots here and making sure the branch is looking nice. Now, this is our back of our paper. So once you get to this part, you're going to cut. Okay, you need to cut out all of your tree parts. Now the other side, the flip side of this paper, is going to be the front. So if you mess up just a little bit, that's okay. But you want to make sure, there you go, you can see that front side. You want to make sure that you still have your tree looking very organic. That's important. Okay, and so now as I go through here, use your good scissor cutting skills. Cut nicely so that you've got some even, clean, nice shapes, and it looks very much like a tree. Okay, when you get to that part where you do have some negative space, you can do one of two things. You can kind of bend your paper a little bit and snip it like that. That will give you a little hole to slide your scissors in. If you can't get that done, you can bring it to me in class and I'll help you make that little snip. I'd like you to try to do it yourself, but if you can't, I'll definitely try to help you. If you're doing this at home and you have a razor blade or like an X-Acto knife or something, you can make very detailed branches and make very detailed, nice looking stuff and use an X-Acto knife to cut that out. I've seen that done and it really makes nice work. So as I continue here, getting my tree cut out, once you get your tree all the way cut out, it'll look something like that. Then take that tree and kind of arrange it on your picture. I like to have mine kind of coming in on a diagonal. It almost makes it look like a photograph. If you want to have it coming up straight, that's fine too. But I feel like it has more dynamic feeling if you have it glued on a diagonal. Take some glue, whatever kind of glue you have, and glue the back of your tree. Try to not get it on the table, and of course put the glue on the back of the tree. Alright, so like just follow along your lines that you've used before. And make sure that you don't get too much on to it so that it gloobers all over the place. We don't want to have a lot of glue on the front of our picture. If you get some on your finger or you need to kind of use your finger to spread it around, make sure you have a paper towel or a scrap piece of paper to kind of clean your hands up on. Okay. Now once you get that tree glued full of glue, arrange it on your picture like you kind of originally had decided you wanted it to be, and try to nicely lay it down. If you get some glue on there, try to wipe it off so that it's not like blobby and nasty looking. Maybe grab a paper towel if it's too much glue, but it should look something like that. When you're done, if you need to, you can take your scissors and just trim off those little extra pieces if they're hanging over the edge, and that's your finished picture. Okay, and this is what we want it to look like. You can see those negative spaces, you can see the nice pointy branches up to the end, and you can see the nice thick, strong trunk. Okay, so thank you for joining me for creating the collage part of our monochromatic tree silhouette.